Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel, or welcome to our channel if you're new. For today's video, we'll be showing you how to make this Guyanese style fry bake. So what this basically is, it's a form of pita bread. You can also call it a type of roti that you can use with anything. You can cut it open and put cheese inside, put any type of meat inside. You can also put curries. You can also use it as a form of taco, which is personally my favorite way of using it. So if you'd like to see how to make this, then please keep on watching. Also be sure to watch until the end. We have a special message about our next video. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So these are the basic ingredients that we'll be using for this recipe. So first you'll need 2 tablespoons of butter, 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, lukewarm water, 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, and lastly you'll need 3 cups of flour. And as always, all of our ingredients used as well as the ways to prepare it will be listed in the description box below. So right here we're just adding in our salt, turmeric powder, butter, brown sugar, and the baking powder, and we're just going to mix all of this up. Now as you can see here, we try to use a whisk to mix this up, and of course it's gonna work, but the problem is that the butter gets stuck onto the whisk and it makes it very difficult. If you have a KitchenAid mixer or any type of mixing device, that works a lot better than a whisk, but for the purpose of this video and the fact that we don't have a KitchenAid mixer, we are going to use our hands. Now be sure that your hands are very clean when doing this, and you want to incorporate all of the ingredients into the flour and make sure that there are no large lumps left from there. And because you're using your hands, it's a lot easier to tell whether there are lumps and whether everything is mixed in properly and together. Now that our flour is properly mixed, we're going to start adding in our water. Now you want to be careful with the water because you want to add them in increments. So you want to add a little bit at a time, and because you're using your hands, well, if you're using your hands for this recipe, it's a lot easier to average how much water you should be putting in. You don't want to make it too watery, and you want to start forming it with your hands. So what we're doing here to make it a lot easier is forming it a little piece with your hands, and once you feel that it's formed, you put it to a side and then you work with the other dry flour. And you're gonna keep doing this until you have a nice sturdy piece of dough, and you're gonna keep playing with it, keep molding it until you have all of the dry flour become part of your now shaggy dough. And now we're adding some more of that water, and that's just going to help again get rid of most of the dry flour that's at the bottom. And then you're going to start molding it into one cohesive ball, and the dough will also start to have a kind of puffiness to it. And now that your shaggy dough is completely formed, you want to take the last bit of water, and we're going to again mold it until we get everything out of the bowl. So the way to know that a dough is very well kneaded is when all of the batter around the bowl is almost pulled clean. And you'll also notice that when the dough is ready, it'll also start to come off of your hands rather than stick on like it did in the beginning. Now for the second part of our dough, you're going to take some flour and stamp your hand into it, and you're going to add that straight onto the dough, and you're going to do this twice. Now what this will do is that you see that there's a little bit of a stickiness left to it. It's going to help get rid of that stickiness and give it a nice coating that whenever you touch it or if anything else touches the dough, it won't get stuck to it. And if you're using a mixer rather than your hands, I would say eyeball it. Maybe just sprinkle a little bit of flour and see how it goes as you go along. But a very small amount is all that you need. The last thing you're going to do with your dough is add a little bit of your vegetable oil onto the top of the dough and start kneading that into the dough. And you're not going to use all of the vegetable oil at once because we're going to need it right at the end. So you're just going to massage this in, and now you'll see that the dough is coming together where there's nothing sticking to your hands and nothing sticking around the bowl. And now the final touch for your dough is that you're going to take the rest of that oil and you're going to add that straight onto the dough and just start to push that into the dough. And then you're just going to give it one more set of kneading where you're just pushing in all of the oil into the dough. And you'll see here that the dough is very puffy, it's almost marshmallowy, and that's exactly how you want your dough. And then you're going to cover this with saran wrap or any type of cloth or material to wrap it. And you're going to let it sit for about half an hour, so 30 minutes, until it rises. So it's been magically 30 minutes later, and we're just putting some flour straight onto our countertop. Don't worry, our countertop is very clean. We cleaned it before doing this. So we're then going to add our dough straight onto the countertop, and the flour is obviously going to prevent it from sticking to our countertop. And we're just adding a little more flour onto that, and then we're going to start shaping our dough into a long section. And we're doing this because we're going to section it off into little pieces. So right here, we're just showing you a method of how we pull them apart. So you basically just hold it with one end of your hand, and then you're just going to pull apart, and this is going to give you a great size for each fry bake. And if you're not comfortable with this method, you can also just use a knife and cut them apart by averaging the size that you want for each bake. And if you want to make more bakes with the same dough, all you have to do is stretch it out just a little bit and cut your pieces accordingly. Now that your dough is sectioned off, you're going to take each one of these and you're going to shape them into spheres, or like shape them into a small spherical shape or like a ball. And you're just going to do that with each one of them, just so that they're easier to roll with your rolling pin later on. Now we are going to take each one of the spheres that we made, and you're just going to add some dry flour and just flatten it straight out. And you're not going to flatten it too much, but you're just going to flatten it enough so that when you use the rolling pin, it's a lot easier to keep that shape. And then now you're going to take your rolling pin or any other rolling tool that you're using and just flat it straight out. And you don't want it to be too flat, but you also don't want it to be too thick. So you're going to have to average the thickness that you'd like. This is the thickness that we went with for each one of them. But just keep in mind that this is the size and thickness that works for us. You can always do it any way that you like. You can make them smaller, bigger, thicker, or thinner. It's entirely up to you. But this is just what works for us in terms of how well it cooks inside when it's frying. Now we're finally moving on to the frying portion of the video. So first we're just checking the oil to see if it's ready to go. So we just added some flour in, and if it dissolves, it's good to go. And then we add our batter into the frying pan. So what you're going to do is you're going to keep moving it around just so that all of the areas of the bake gets submerged in the frying oil. And then you're going to wait for the bake to start to rise to the top. Now as you can see here, some of the air bubbles start to show up. Don't be alarmed by that, it's supposed to do that. So then once it starts to come to the top of the oil, and it's right at the top of the oil and has less of the actual frying oil on top of it, you're going to flip it, and then you're going to let it cook for the same amount of time it took for the bottom to cook. And before you take it out of the oil, you want to make sure that it has that nice golden brown color, and you're just going to put it into a platter with paper towel. Now the reason why we put it into a platter with paper towel is just to make sure that it absorbs some more of the oil that's left over, just so that it's not too oily when you're ready to eat it. And you're just going to repeat these steps for each one. And this is the final recipe completed. Now this type of bake is very easy to use with virtually anything, like we're about to show you here. So this is a salted cod with tomatoes recipe, and we are going to upload this recipe later on in the week, and this is in conjunction with this recipe right here. So I will leave a link down below once that video is up. It will be down in the description so that you can click right on it right after this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you thought about this video, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos and turn on post notifications to be notified whenever we upload. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and thanks for watching!